Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Earhart. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Tom's Hardware Show. Today, we are looking at new ThinkPads and a new ThinkPad design style coming from Lenovo. We have Tom Butler from Lenovo joining us. But before that, let's roll the thing. So, hello again, everyone. As always, I am your host, Michelle Earhart. It's another Thursday at 3 o'clock, which means another episode of the Tom's Hardware Show. I appreciate RCal2000 here saying they always start stream on time. They should get props for that. Well, thank you for giving us props. And joining me today is Tom Butler from Lenovo. Tom is the Executive Director of the Commercial Portfolio. How are you doing today, Tom?
Doing well, Michelle. Thanks. Thanks for having me on here. And by the way, I love the name of the show as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very fun to have Tom on the Tom Show. Very appropriate. But what's also appropriate, for a tech publication is you have some new ThinkPad news to drop for us, including the first ThinkPad with a mobile processor and some potential new materials that you're going to consider making the Z series out of. So I won't get in your way. Without further ado, Tom. Oh, wrong screen. Without further ado, Tom, what do you have to show us?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, we've had a couple of really exciting announcements. First at CES, Consumer Electronics Show in January timing, we launched or unveiled the all-new Z series. And this really represents a new design language for us, an approach to the products, going after customers who have not buying ThinkPad today, sort of looking at different designs, choice, and a lot of emphasis on sustainability. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that as I introduce it. But the second one, equally as exciting, we introduced at Mobile World Congress recently, is the first Windows on Snapdragon for ThinkPad. And it really represents the first business-focused or business-ready Windows and Snapdragon platform in the market. And both of these, the reason I bring these on the show today, both of these represent a longer-term co-development, co-engineering with our partners. So with the Z series, we're exclusive AMD on these platforms, so we can spend some more time kind of discussing this. And of course, with Qualcomm on the Windows and Snapdragon platform, but we did a deep partnership, a multi-year partnership with Qualcomm and Microsoft to develop and bring this platform to market. So really excited to kind of give you a little bit of behind the scenes. We can go through some details and of course, answer any questions your audience have as well.
Great. Just as a reminder, we're streaming live to YouTube, Twitch, our own website, Facebook, all at the same time. And we can see comments coming in from any of those sources. So if you have any questions, just please feel free to drop them. And we will show them on the screen as they come up and answer them while Tom's here. It's always nice to be able to give you that kind of access. But let's go ahead and get started. So Tom, with this Snapdragon ThinkPad, what's sort of the design philosophy behind that? Why introduce a mobile chip? I know it's supposed to have a really impressive battery life, but I'm curious what Lenovo has to share.
Yeah, really, really excited about this one. So when you step back and think about laptop use in general, the laptop always comes with a power adapter, meaning that you're always going to carry the power adapter as you carry your laptop because you know you're not going to make it through your day. You may need to plug in at some point to just top off the battery life to make it through. And so when we approached this project, this Qualcomm powered device, we really wanted to look at how could we break that paradigm and free you up from the power adapter, very much like you have with your mobile phone. None of us carry our power adapters with us with our mobile phone throughout the day because we know we can make it through the day, yet we're maintaining that always on, always connected status, and then plug it in at night when we finish the day. So taking that mindset or that approach, that's how we looked at this product. But then from a ThinkPad perspective, we are very much business focused as much as we are consumer focused or end user focused. And so I needed to bring a product to market that was business ready. And so I actually started this project over 4 years ago with Qualcomm and Microsoft. I sat down with them and went through sort of this vision of, let's go deliver a platform that could break that paradigm of the power adapter of always on, always connected. But let's also make sure that it's business ready. And for that, I needed ecosystem, I needed performance, both hand in hand with the device. So we started charting with Qualcomm, looking at sort of their long-term roadmap and looking at sort of the steps as they went through the SD chipsets and then ultimately the HCX chipsets, HCX Gen 1, Gen 2, and ultimately Gen 3. And when we looked at the performance, the performance really jumped from Gen 2 to Gen 3. And so the CPU went up 60% performance gen to gen. The GPU went up 80% performance from Gen 2 to Gen 3. So we got to a platform we felt comfortable with the performance, all the while maintaining that efficiency. We talked about the battery life, and I'll go into that in a little bit more. But then I needed the ecosystem. So meaning I needed native compatibility, not just emulation of a platform. And so working with both Qualcomm and Microsoft, again, starting way back, multiple years ago, we started plotting the applications we needed for productivity, for security, for deployment management of the device to ensure that when we launch this product, we're getting to that native application support coupled with the performance. So that's how it sort of all came together. And so now, if you take a step back, we'll look at the battery life is phenomenal. It's 28 hours. That's video playback. So you're going to get less than that as you're using the device, but you're going to get all-day battery life, true all-day battery life.
How did you measure those battery life figures? That's very impressive.
Yeah, so the 28 hours is a video playback, and so that's just running the video. Just running video as playback. We are also running benchmarks with applications productivity use. We will be using and posting mobile mark 18 statements as well, like we do with the rest of our products and portfolio. But we're seeing battery life that eclipses anything that you've ever seen before. And if you think about just the portability of this device, it's a thin and light. It's 2.35 pounds, 13 millimeters thin. So it's a nice lightweight portable device. But one of the reasons I was able to accomplish such a large amount of battery life is I put effectively a 50 watt hour battery inside this. And so it gives you still a very good balance of weight and portability. But I didn't go perhaps as thin or as light as I could have. I could have sacrificed some of that battery life, but we prioritized, I want to be able to put this in your hands and confidently tell you that you're going to carry it throughout your day, always on, always connected, and not worry about battery life.
Great. We actually have a comment here saying from Raphael Hassel, good times, Lenovo equals solid gear, which is actually something that I'm curious to bring up because you mentioned power and performance a lot. As far as I understand, this is running Windows 11 on ARM.
Correct.
You tested it with video playback. But you also say, this is geared towards businesses. ThinkPad is known as kind of a premium brand. Who are you targeting with this, and what all will people be able to do? Because I assume that you're targeting for people to be able to do more than they can on, say, a Chromebook or whatever.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. No, great question. So if you think about again, I need to be able to run my day-to-day, business, let's say business applications on it, but it's going to be your productivity apps, whether that's Office or other, running a suite of security applications if they're loaded up on the device as well. Of course, email browsing. I'm not going to try to pretend that we're pushing this as a heavy graphics intensive, heavy data set. I've got plenty of other devices within the portfolio that meet that. But if you think about who can use this device, who would benefit from this device, it's going to be anyone with a high degree of mobility. So, one of the things we did is we optimized around a 13-inch screen. to give you a nice portable, again, that portable lightweight form factor. Yet we're bringing 5G sub-6, but we also have 5G millimeter wave supported on this device. So you're also going to see, anyone who has a wireless WAN or 5G plan connected to devices. This is going to be highly applicable in that space. And so anyone also working all day in the field. And so, thinking through, if you're in, I'll just rattle off a few, but if you're in real estate or technical field sales, or updates of that nature, you're going to have a great product that gives you that mobility and connectivity for real-time updates. And again, much like your mobile phone, so you think about the always on, always connected, instant access to information. You're going to have the same thing with this device.
Great. We do have a question here.
Sure.
Apologies if I mess up this name, but Preslav Kolev asks, will the X13S and Z13 have enough performance for game dev? We're looking at the X13S, correct?
Yes. So the X13S, this should have mentioned up front. So X13S, I did cover the Z13, and as we go to the Z series, we'll talk a little bit about the Z13. I've got a larger device with Z16. I wouldn't go after this necessarily from a development platform.
Right.
Again, you're going to see.
Go on. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I can just speak from experience a little bit that I used to do some game dev on an old MacBook Air from 2014, which I assume isn't as powerful as this even. No. But sometimes doing game dev on a slower or a machine that doesn't quite match up to the machines people will be playing the game on means that you are testing at a lower frame rate. So something might look okay on your screen, or you might adjust it to fix your screen, and then you test it on another system. You're like, oh, this is completely busted for another user. So
yeah, exactly. And I'll show you in a few moments, I'll show you the Z16, which has more horsepower. It has H-class CPUs. It has Radeon graphics included with the device, and that may be more appropriate, for game dev.
We actually already got another question for the Z16, which I think we can hold for later.
Okay, I will definitely address that though.
Yeah, we have a special answer for that a little later in the show.
Actually, we do.
But while we're talking about the X13S, Avram Pilcher, editor-in-chief, actually asks, is the 5G going to be standard or optional? And is mmWave standard on 5G models?
All right, great question, Avram. Glad to hear from you as well. So 5G, so we'll have options. We'll have Wi-Fi model, 5G model sub-6, and we'll have 5G model 5G plus millimeter wave. So we'll actually have 3 different SKUs as we line these up. And part of it is not these are worldwide devices. Should have mentioned that. So not every country has carriers ready to support the millimeter wave standard. We do have partnerships with quite a few carriers worldwide that do have mmWave that will support, but we'll have those 3 SKUs as a short answer to the question.
This is maybe this is coming from me, and maybe is a silly question, but for those areas that don't have 5G support, are you considering 4G models maybe, or?
Yeah, no, we're actually leaning in on this one. I mean, this one is such an elegant connected device. We wanted to just provide 5G. Of course, it will step down. The 5G SKUs will step down to LTE connected.
It would just be a cost thing, but
right. Yeah, but we wanted to go forward with 5G exclusively on this platform. The Z series, Z13, will be LTE enabled or 4G enabled as an alternative.
So we mentioned, maybe you want to run Office on this, maybe you want to run various security platforms, maybe not something as intensive as game dev, but like Raphael Hassel says, a laptop isn't necessarily the way for that anyway, or at least a thin and light laptop. I've definitely known people who use like Alienwares to do it, but that's not what this is targeting. So why go for this over a different, Windows for ARM device?
Yeah, so or different Windows device. I would say from an ARM perspective, if you think about a Windows compatible, we believe, I'm fairly biased as owner of ThinkPad portfolio, but we believe we put a very solid quality product into the market from a PC perspective. And so if you think about picking up a device that is ready for a productivity, multi-year life cycle, worldwide supported, serviced and supported, and runs through the gamut of the ThinkPad, I'll call them the torture test criteria that we run our devices through. We're very excited about putting this in our customers' hands. It's, as I said before, if you think about the Intel or the AMD powered devices versus this Qualcomm powered device, this is really going to be geared towards that high degree of mobility and connectivity to give you that instant, that always on, always connected experience. And again, the freedom or the untethering of the laptop from the power supply. Because again, any of those other devices, you will come back to the power supply at some point.
Does this have a touch screen?
It does, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So yeah, touch. We'll have on-cell touch screen as an option. We have non-touch as well. The other thing I should highlight is every one of our devices has been focused really on collaboration. So you're going to see a little bit of a rise
I've
here.
noticed that, yes.
So we actually affectionately call this a communication bar, and it houses a 5 megapixel MIPI based camera. So one of the advantages we have in working with Qualcomm is taking advantage of their mobile phone expertise and experience. And so we've got a very high quality camera, but we also have the AI engine underneath that supports or offloads from CPU based compute to render out auto framing, background blur. It will actually sense presence of you walking in front of your device, and if you look away or walk away, it will dim the screen. Obviously, I have it turned off today, so it stays on. But it will, from a power savings perspective, you'll benefit from that as well. And then the other element I would highlight is all of our devices, and you're going to see a continued strong drumbeat on environmental movement, use of materials, use of packaging and things. And I'll spend a lot of time with that on Z series as well. But this chassis, so since we started from the ground up, we've designed this with a 90% recycled magnesium chassis. And we've gone to completely plastics-free packaging. And so we really tried to move the needle forward. And all of our devices, and you're going to see across the portfolio, are going to take advantage of this significant push to a more environmentally friendly, sustainable message and platform.
Great. I know that we definitely have a lot to talk about with the Z series with that, especially in a way that's maybe kind of visually interesting. It isn't just like pure stats, people. But before we move away from the ARM laptop, I do have to ask, what's the damage? George Hampton asks, when will the ARM-based laptops be available, and what does the pricing look like?
Great question, George. Thanks. So we're going to be launching these in April, and we'll have a starting price. Wi-Fi model will be at $1099 US.
Okay. And then before we move away from this laptop again, we also have a question. Will you need a SIM card to be plugged in the laptop to have 5G?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually support eSIM. So we have embedded SIM. We do have a SIM slot on the side of the system. So depending on the country and carrier you're connected to or country you're in, some carriers still require physical SIM. So we have that card slot, but we also have that support for electronic SIM or embedded SIM on the system as well. And more, we're seeing more and more carriers, of course, move to that model, which makes it so much easier.
How do I get a carrier for this? Like if I buy it from Lenovo's website or whatever, and I want 5G, what's the process look like?
Yeah, so in the U.S. market, which I'll speak to, we'll have both Verizon and AT&T options available for you.
Great. So Javier Perea asks, we just answered this, but I want to get to him. He's a regular show viewer. How much is there an entry-level laptop? It starts at $1099, correct?
$1099, yep.
Great. Which is actually, I think, fairly, definitely expensive, but fairly affordable as far as ThinkPad devices tend to be, correct?
It is, yeah. In fact, I'll show you a couple more that have a little bit higher starting prices.
Great. Well, actually, if you, unless you have anything else to share on the X13S, we can go ahead and move on to the Z series right away.
All right, excellent. So let's jump into the Z series. And so I'll show you actually bring up a couple of devices, and we'll just start sort of outside in. As you look at these devices, I've got a 13-inch and a 16-inch. Now, there's already a question on the table about the colorway we have on the 16-inch, but which I'll answer. I'm showing two different color palettes, and so this first one, the 13-inch, we're actually having three different colors, and so I've got what I'm showing here is a vegan leather cover and bronze accent. The 16-inch is an Arctic gray, silver with silver polished accents. And then my 13-inch comes both in this silver as well as the vegan leather. And I also have a black aluminum with silver polished accents on the side. So I've got three choices for the Z13. Currently, I only have the Z16 in this Arctic gray choice. And so, short answer to the question earlier asked is just the single SKU or single colorway at this point. But what we're doing with this device is it's really a bit of a departure from the traditional ThinkPad that many of the audience members may know. We're targeting sort of a new design aesthetic, going after the design, but also the materials, the choice, the different finishes. In this case, and I'll put these on top of each other too, just for contrast. If you look overhead, you'll see the contrast of the color with the black vegan, the accent of the bronze, and again this communication bar. I talked about it with the X13s. You can see really a highlight or celebration of the camera as we've moved into this hybrid, really work from anywhere type mode, and much more on the video collaboration. We're starting to spend more time and dedication of the cameras than we ever have before.
I noticed that the notch goes up and away from the screen rather than
Yes.
into the screen, which I think is a nice touch.
Yeah, it's funny. We played with, how do we place this? Do we place it? Do we drop it down and cut away from usable screen? We didn't like that approach. We wanted to, of course, prioritize screen. We're all looking at and want to use and maximize our screen as much as possible. And so we moved it up above the frame to a degree. And again, this allows us to house higher quality cameras. It also, we put our microphones in. And as we roll out additional features, for example, on my X1 line at CES, we talked about computer vision chips housed in these chassis as well in the smart collaboration communication bar.
Right. Not to belabor this point too much, but I notice I can see the specs for at least the Z16s on there. And that's 1080p at 30 FPS.
Yep, it is. Very good. You can. Yep, shows up well. Yeah, we started. It's funny. We started talking about internally as we design these. What do we do with this space first of all? And it's subtle, sort of etched subtly into the names. The names Z13, Z16. But we also, in sort of celebration of the camera, we started putting in the specs. So to your point, you're reading the 1080p, 30 frames per second, f2.0 lens, because we're spending more time and energy on producing a quality camera experience for you.
Great. What kind of resolution and frame rate does the Z13 have?
It's the same. It doesn't show up with the bronze as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same camera between the two.
Great. So cameras aside, I just noted that I just could see the specs and I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and you'll see, and I'll just put these up on the side as well. You'll see the difference in the polished sidewalls, and so that bronze sidewall and the aluminum sidewall, it's quite different between the two colorways that you see here as well. And this really is sort of the start of sort of the exploration of what we can do with these designs. And again, kind of getting back to that color discussion, the designs or the systems themselves are really built to take advantage of sort of the ability to move in and move out of colors, materials, choices as we progress over time. And that's something that we've not done before. Traditionally, I'm not offering 3 different styles or 3 different colors of a laptop. But as we started pushing or exploring with the Z series, the choice or design or color became a strong sentiment or request for the product. The other thing was sustainability. And I've already mentioned a little bit of sustainability with the X13S or the Snapdragon laptop. But these we've built from the ground up. So 75% sustainable or 75% recycled aluminum chassis. The vegan leather is 100% recycled PET. The package itself, if I look overhead, now actually I'm showing you the X1 package because we've rolled this across our X1 line as well as our Z series. I've never put packaging on the camera before or been excited about packaging, I'll be honest with you, but I am about this package because this is 100% bamboo sugar cane. It's rapid compostable, rapid recyclable, or completely recyclable packaging. And so we basically have just completely revamped how the system is shipped. And we drop this product in, house it in, completely plastics free. We've taken all plastics out of the packaging, external as well as this internal box. And we've created this, what I believe is probably the most sustainable package of a laptop that's shipped to the market today.
Now, when you say no plastics, does that mean that when I take the laptop out of the box, it's not going to have those like little stickers
Correct.
all over it that'll need to peel off?
Well, no. So the sticker itself, like the AMD Ryzen sticker, will be on the palm rest.
Oh, I mean like the little transparent
Oh,
clear
yeah,
ones.
those
But it's good
small.
to know.
Yeah,
Speaking of
yeah.
AMD Ryzen,
Yes.
we've posted this on this article. It's past embargo, but
Yep.
just for anyone who's joining right now, what are the specs we'll be able to get on these laptops?
Yeah, so these will be the Ryzen Pro 6000 series. So we'll range from R3, R5, R7. One of the things we've done with this product, it's like I said, very at the top of the show, it's a little bit different. Typically, you see AMD inside an Intel system, so Intel or AMD is a choice. We partnered exclusively with AMD on these Z series for a couple of reasons. It allowed us to co-engineer, co-develop the platform and optimize for the Ryzen Pro 6000 platform. On the 16-inch, this system we're bringing a Radeon Pro graphics into this system, and we have employed what's called Smart Shift technology, which allows you, based on the application or the workload you're using, to throttle up or throttle down the AP or CPU or the GPU. So you can get a boost of up to 14% dynamically based on what you're doing. So we really liked that partnership of putting the CPU and APU together.
I'm curious. We were talking a bit before the show. There's no like Intel version of this laptop, correct?
Correct.
Does that Smart Shift have like to do with that at all?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah. So again, you think about to get these to cooperate together. I could put other GPU engines into the system, but then I'm dealing with different silicon providers effectively. And so by partnering with AMD, we were able to go create this system and optimize the platform so it's thin, light, but gives you that performance that you would expect in a 16-inch system. And then inside, you've got this fantastic, very narrow bezel screen to body ratio system. And as I focus down onto the deck of the system, you're also going to see a little bit of a different keyboard layout for us. You're going to see the inclusion of the track point buttons into a force pad. So I get the benefit of a full touchpad if I'm a touchpad user. If I'm a track point user, I have the physical or the physical feedback of the buttons.
Is that a fingerprint reader next to the left arrow key?
It is, yes. And we've embedded the fingerprint reader into the keyboard.
Okay.
So because normally I would cut a notch out of the palm rest. And then the palm rest itself is an all glass palm rest, including glass touchpad. So we started, as we built this device, we were going for a very clean, modern aesthetic, high quality premium material and experience. And then, a little bit of a change from the traditional ThinkPad layout and look, but while maintaining, of course, the phenomenal keyboard. We pride ourselves very much on creating a fantastic keyboard experience as well.
I've tested a few ThinkPads, and that's my favorite part of the ThinkPad line is the keyboard. So I'm glad to hear that you're continuing that here as well. I know that you were in the middle of a sustainability talk. I don't mean to
Yes.
interrupt you on that because we do have some very cool stuff to show off there. But just a couple of questions because we are Tom's Hardware. We like to get into the weeds on the specs a little bit.
Sure.
So one question, why isn't the
Ah,
trackpad centered?
that's a great question. So the trackpad here, so it actually the keyboard itself is centered, and we've aligned the touchpad to spacebar. So you'll actually see equidistance on either side, and then we align the touchpad, or rather the track point and touchpad to the spacebar. So it actually is
Gotcha.
centered. It does look off-centered if you look at palm rest to the left and right, but it's centered to the keyboard experience itself.
Gotcha. And then we have another question. How is the Linux driver support?
Yeah, so we're working on Linux certifications for these platforms as well, and I'm gonna mess up if I tell you which ones they are, because we're working with several. I'm gonna off the cuff, it's Red Hat, Ubuntu, but I need to come back, or we'll answer that question after the fact with the specific releases that we're certifying. But we are driving Linux certification on these platforms.
No worries. So I actually have a personal question,
Yeah.
which is what kind of that looks like a 16:10 aspect
Yes.
ratio to me?
Yes. Great question. I should have even missed part of the best part. I'm so happy that we've moved back to 16:10 screen ratios, and so you're going to see that really across the board as we look at our ThinkPad portfolio this year. Vast majority of our products have moved to 16:10, and I'm a big fan because it gives you that extra height for honestly for more screen real estate, and therefore more productivity, whether it's more lines, more rows, more content to stream and view. And so every one of our designs that we've launched, Z13 included, the X13S I showed earlier, are 16:10 screen ratios.
What kind of resolution and I guess refresh rate are we talking about?
Yeah, so the resolution, these are now I'm going to mess that one up too, but WXGA on the X13S, the 16-inch. I'll actually pull up my spec sheet. That, that is going to be a WQUXGA 400 nit OLED panel on the 16-inch, and the 13-inch is going to be also a WQXGA OLED panel, and we'll have WUXGA as well.
Great. And we do have another comment from Christopher Baranski here who says,
point. Yeah.
yeah, my T440S has the same uncentered, quotation marks, trackpad. And yeah, I believe this isn't the first time ThinkPad has gone for that sort of design. So I'm sure that you have it like nailed by now.
Definitely got the feedback though, for sure.
So going back to the sustainability talk, I know that we had a special answer to that alternate colors question earlier. So feel free to continue.
Yeah, no, great. So wanted to spend some time and just kind of give you a little bit more background on the system side itself. So as I mentioned before, as we redesign these systems, heavy focus on the use of sustainable materials. And part of it is we want to significantly move the needle forward in terms of the claims, the use of materials that we're using. So as I talked about, 90% recycled magnesium, 75% recycled aluminum. I'm not going to chase a minor part of a system and claim, I've seen some claims in market of 5% post-consumer content of a speaker enclosure inside. That's not meaningful. So we really want to push heavily on the meaningful use of sustainable materials. And I showed you the packaging earlier. What I'd like to share with you, and I'd love to get some feedback from the audience members as well, are some models, conceptual models of what we could use for sustainable materials. And so I'll pull up, and I can actually just open these up so we can look at these sort of front and center. I'm going to pull up two designs, and these represent models, conceptual models of materials that we could use. And so
I'm so glad that our editor-in-chief, Avram Pilch, is watching, because I feel like these designs are way up his alley.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but I love the sort of retro wood kind of finish here. But yeah, these are sustainable materials, right?
Yes. So these represent, so this is actually banana husk, and this one is flaxseed. And so and these are not, I should highlight, these are not, veneers or stick-ons or covers. These, if we go build something like this, it is the cover. It's the top cover of the system. And so what we're exploring are materials like this. And of course, there's a lot to go on behind this. I've got to think about the long-term durability, the care, the manufacturing, the repeatable manufacturing of systems that would use materials like this. So it's not something that I can just snap my fingers and we move to the next type of material like this. But it does show, and I just wanted to share with the audience, with you and the audience, the exploration of even more sustainable materials. Because the problem is, if I go back to that 16-inch system for a moment, if I tell you this is 75% recycled aluminum, but you have no idea, to anyone just looking at this looks like another aluminum metal laptop. And so you really, it doesn't convey the effort, the energy and the benefit to the planet. But if I was to put something like this in market, this is going to at least convey there's something else going on here. And so that it's going to, start communicating a little bit more outwardly. Very similar to our packaging. When you see the packaging, the plastics-free bamboo sugarcane package, that's very obvious that we put a significant effort into driving more sustainable materials.
Great. I'm curious because we have Raphael Hassel here, who I think made a couple of guesses as to the materials before they came up. Why flaxseed and banana husk?
Yeah, and these are, by the way, these may never see the light of day, but these represent sort of a very strong push into a very sustainable, reusable, replenishable materials. Very similar to our bamboo sugarcane packaging that I showed earlier. We're looking for materials that can be sustainably grown, sustainably harvested, sustainably replanted, so you get that full life cycle or ecosystem built in. Because I've got to think about end of life as well. So I've got to, can I then reuse or reclaim materials and put it back into the ecosystem? So I generate a closed loop. And so when we looked at materials like, if I started thinking about woods or different fibrous or organic materials, the flaxseed and the banana husk sort of check the mark for that sustainable closed ecosystem. Then the question again comes back to, can I repeatedly manufacture in a quality way so I can then, have many of these devices out in market and in a very durable fashion, a reusable fashion for a multi-year life cycle. So that's a short answer to your question, perhaps, in sort of pressing this envelope.
So I have a couple more viewer questions, and then I have some personal questions about the sort of woody style design. But before we get to those, can you actually show us the rest of the devices? Is that something you're able to? I don't know how much these mockups are.
There's a little bit. These are models, and so I can just show you the outside because there's some things we're playing with on the inside as well.
Oh, okay.
So these are part of what our design philosophy is continuously pushing the envelope and stretching the bounds. And so there's some things in the inside that we'll leave off the table for today.
All right. So before I get to my questions, I'll prioritize the audience. So I know you asked for feedback. So we have one comment that says, I like the one on the left more, but personally, I'd go for silver or black.
Yeah. So that's very good. It's very interesting feedback because interestingly enough, the silver and black are the predominant colors of choice. It's interesting when we do design studies and colorway studies. I've been in the room, observed, run large focus groups where we put a palette of colors out. And what's interesting often is someone, the audience or the group will get very excited about some very polarizing colors or tests of colors. And they'll think, this is so exciting, really excited about it. But you know what? I'm going to buy the silver one or the black one. That, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. What it shows is that's why the dominant color waves in the compute space are silver or black.
I think it's just like easier for those to go with the rest of your devices, right?
Yes. Well, there's exactly, and that's the other thing is you've got to think about the whole digital wardrobe that we carry with us. We've got our cell phone, we've got the bags we put the devices in, we've got the laptops themselves, we're connecting those potentially to monitors or other accessories, and then just the wardrobe that we carry and present ourselves. And if you put a laptop like this out in a cafe and open it up, there's going to be definitely some excitement about it, but it's going to stand out as well versus a silver or black. Yeah, I see the comment. Yeah,
I think
black,
this basically covers it, right?
It does. It really does.
Although we do have a response to that from Raphael Hassel, who says, I love the wood husk flax, looks great, really my style, love the eco. Throw some Noctua fans on there, which have a similar sort of brown, sort of wood-like finish, and I'm good. So that's good to know that we do have some positive responses to the wood. We also recycled aluminum, way to go. I think that's more like cheering you on rather than saying I prefer the aluminum. But we do have a response to that from Too Many Remote Controllers, because I know you said that part of the reason to go for the wood is that people looking at recycled aluminum may not know it's recycled. So he suggests, can't you just engrave the recycle number on there?
That's great feedback. In fact, let me show you one quick thing, and we'll focus in just very quickly on the base. This is my X13S. I don't know if we can do an overhead focus down here, but you actually see we're starting to play around with to that feedback. To Too Many Remote Controllers feedback. This is showing sort of a experimental of a recycled a green leaf, and showing the magnesium. And we have played with, do we put something like 90% recycled mag or magnesium on this chassis as an example, just as a way to further convey what we're doing. So that's great feedback from this user. Really appreciate that.
Great. So we do actually, while you have the X13S, we do have some questions about it. We can get to them a little bit later, but since you're here with them, just to take a quick little detour, Javier Perea asked way earlier in the show, which codec/decodecs does the chip have? Is that something you know offhand?
I don't have that on top of my head. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll get back to that.
Something probably a bit more easy to answer is the RAM memory integrated into the Snapdragon chip?
Yeah, so it is soldered down, and actually on the 13-inch devices as well. So it's soldered down, but up to 32 gig of memory.
Great. I assume that like part of that is just for allowing the device to be as thin as possible.
Yeah, more and more we're seeing. I mean, as much as we've used DIMM slots in the past. I mean, as we've driven down, really the market is driven down to desire for these thinner, lighter laptops. We're running short on room in terms of the height, because the other thing I've got to make sure of is I've got that quality travel keyboard on the device. And so we just, as we start looking at the stacking battery, motherboard, keyboard, laid into the system, into a thin, light, compact system, you start running out of room on the DIMM slots.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was looking at the comments. It seemed like maybe we were getting spammed a little bit, but I think I have that under control. So apologies if anyone saw that. It's the problem with doing these things live. But I know you were talking about reclaiming parts earlier. So we actually have a question from our editor-in-chief, Abram Pilch. How do you reclaim the electronic parts?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Abram. So, right now we currently have in place and have for quite a few years a buyback program at the end of life of the device as a service, really for our business customers, because we're looking at a significant amount of devices coming back as systems are retired from our business customers, and so that allows us to redeploy or reuse and ultimately recycle as much as we can of the device. Now, these systems aren't completely reusable. We can't reclaim all of the materials out, so we do have to go through a disposal process as well. But as we do so, we work to reclaim as much of the materials. And when I start talking about these, 75% recycled aluminum, 90% recycled mag, we're starting to focus more and more on what's happening at the end of life and building in the design so we can reclaim even more materials over time. But the other thing that we've done, and it's really from a front end perspective, logistically, we own our own manufacturing, so we design, develop, and manufacture. So we have that end to end captured, and so we introduced a low temperature solder process in the motherboard design that consumes less power, uses less energy, and we got such great success or yield from that we actually shared it out to the industry to drive the entire industry to a low temperature solder process. So we're constantly looking sort of the full life cycle end to end. Since we own that, we do own that from an end-to-end perspective. The other thing we do is just logistics. So we offer bulk pack shipping. So again, thinking of these business customers, if you're buying lots of, a large amount of systems, we'll actually multi-pack these in and even pack them efficiently on pallets to deliver to our customers versus just shipping them the individual boxes out. So kind of looking at that sort of holistically, end-to-end perspective.
Great. I actually have another viewer question here, and then we can start talking about price and availability because it seems
Sure.
like people are curious about that. But would there be something like the Apple Right to Repair program for these laptops? How easily can you open these up? How easily can you replace parts? That sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you'll focus in on the if you look down on the system, I just flipped the X13S over.
I'll
You're gonna
hide the question too so we can see.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so you'll see actually we have, let's see on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 captive screws. That will remove the entire base plate, and that gives you full access to any replaceable parts. And so that's going to be SSD. Some of my systems have DIMM slots. Most don't. They're soldered. Wireless cards, wireless WAN cards, and so and we have online service manuals and repair manuals as well. So all of our systems have these effectively these captive bottom doors to give you immediate and quick access, and really sort of a simplified view. You'll see I'll pull my Z13 up here as well. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 captive screws on this one. In this case, so every one of these is really designed around the right to repair or the repairability or ease of repair of our systems.
Great. Thank you for that. So without further ado, I was going to ask this, but I'll let too many remote controllers ask it. What's the availability date for the Z series?
Yeah, so availability, and I'll hit the price points as well. So availability will be April timeframe for the 13, May timeframe for the 16, and then 13-inch will start at $1,549, and the 16 that Performance 16 will be $2,099.
Great. And so I guess, gosh, I had a question, but I'm blanking really quickly. But that's okay because I have another question. Alexander Vob asks, with the X1 and X390, the magnesium chassis shines a little bit in the light, and you can see some little stars. I've noticed that on some laptops where they kind of shift a bit in the light. Does the X13S have the same?
It does, yeah. So sort of that speckle or metallic property in it. And so I'll kind of pivot it maybe in the light. It's hard to see
I'll
perhaps on
zoom
the
in
camera.
for you.
But yeah, it does have sort of a little bit of a metallic characteristics. And Alexander, you're right on the X1 and the X390, similar fashion to that. Yeah, as I said, it's a little bit different when I juxtapose that with the metal 16, and of course the vegan leather is completely different. So it kind of gives you sort of the flavor of 3 different color waves here.
Great. And I've remembered what I was going to ask, which is those sort of sustainable concepts you showed us. I know that they're just concepts right now. There's stuff you are still working on, but I wouldn't be doing due diligence if I didn't ask, when might we see something like that, start to make its way into the market?
Great question. I don't have the answer for you.
Okay.
The short answer is we've still got to prove it out. So the material, it's got to be a very, and we are working on different materials and uses, and we're also pushing the envelope on use of recycled materials, as I mentioned, because I'm knocking out 75% recycled aluminum. Can I push that further? 90% recycled magnesium. Can I push that further? What we end up with is the challenge of the yield of the material. So what I don't want to do is over rotate to materials such that I'm having yield issues or quality problems with the durability of the system. Same thing for these, for the flaxseed banana husk that I showed. We're stressing those types of materials, and there are other materials as well, to sort of determine what is feasible, to ensure that, again, I've got that end-to-end life cycle approach in mind.
Great. I'm also very curious about those from an aesthetic standpoint. So I do have to ask, what are the color options we have on the currently available models again?
Yeah. So great question. So on the current, Z, and we can do an overhead shot on this to again sort of show the contrast. Z16 will be the Arctic gray aluminum chassis only. Z13 I'll have in this Arctic gray. I'll also have a black aluminum with the silver polished sidewalls, and then I'll have this vegan leather with a bronze accent. So the Z13 will actually come in 3 different options, and in the Z16 only in the Arctic gray at this point.
Gotcha. So we are coming up on time, but before we go, I want to make sure that we have a time for any lingering questions in the chat. So Prislav Kolev asks, what about the custom AMD CPU for the
Yes,
Z series? I assumed this was running the 6000
it is,
series, correct?
he's very perceptive. So I didn't mention. So with the Z13, again, because of that deep integration partnership we drove with AMD, we will have a custom Ryzen Pro SKU, and so the normal flow is R3, R5, R7. We're going to have these are U class CPUs. We're going to have an R7Z. No surprise on the end name there. And actually, I did have a hand in that naming. So the R7Z will be the best of the best of the Ryzen Pro 6000 series. So there's going to be, if you want the most efficient, if you want the highest performance, the R7Z will be that top of the top
Are you
spec.
able to share any specs with us, or?
No, we're not quite launch ready on this one.
Okay.
But we're squeezing out the best performing and most efficient platforms together, and so that allows us to again provide that very best of the best. And so I think that's the short answer to the question about that custom SKU. It will be exclusive to the Z13. So again, if you're looking for an AMD platform, first of all, I hope you look at these. But if you're looking for the best of the best U-class, Ryzen Pro 6000 platform, that R7Z will be in this Z13 only.
And for anyone who doesn't know, U-class means it draws less power, correct?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it's a 15 watt class effectively.
Yeah. Most of our audience would know that kind of thing, but I like to make the show
Oh, that's fair.
approachable when we can.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting these custom AMD CPUs nowadays, though. We have the Steam Deck with its custom APU, and now we have you guys coming out with a custom high class U series. So that's curious to see. So another question is, once you unscrew captive screws, are there also clips that have to be removed with a shim or a wedge?
Hmm.
I'm worried about mistakenly breaking them.
Yeah, so there are clips that hold the bottom door on. So you sort of move around the perimeter, but they're designed for multiple openings, multiple close for serviceability of the system. So you shouldn't have a problem getting into those. And honestly, I generally open these by hand. I mean, I don't use. Probably my service team would ask that we use some kind of shim or wedge, but I should just use fingernails
I
and
have a spudger that I use
yes, yeah,
to get them off, which is
yeah,
for anyone who's not aware, it's just like a wedge, a little plastic wedge.
yeah.
But it's always annoying when I don't have it on me and I need to open a laptop. So it's good to know it can be opened with just like a fingernail. So another question, Michael
Battery
Anas
replacement.
asks, is the battery replaceable?
Yes, they are. Yeah, so that's part of that. Again, back to the question of right to repair. These, the bottom doors pop off. You have access to battery as well. There are a few more screws to hold it down and a couple of cables to disconnect, but the battery is removable, replaceable. It doesn't just unclip. We used to have external batteries, of course, on the systems that would pop in, pop out. So it takes a little bit more of an effort to get to it, but yes, for sure.
I mean, I assume people might have their own ones in mind, but could I order a replacement battery from Lenovo if I get to that point?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So all of our systems have, again, that from a serviceability perspective, and candidly, we really are not. You want to buy a
Yeah,
Lenovo battery, full stop, to put back into the system.
fair enough. So final question is actually about you, Tom. How long
Oh,
have you
how long have
been
you been working
working
here?
at
Oh,
Lenovo?
yeah, great question. So interesting story. So I started in 2005, which was the very beginning of Lenovo, and
Wow.
I was interviewed by IBM and then hired by Lenovo. So I really enjoy telling that story because halfway through the process, and I was coming into the ThinkPad team, the worldwide ThinkPad team at the time, they called me up and said, "Hey, we're now Lenovo." I said, "Okay, tell me a little bit more." But I was still very interested, and really have been here ever since. I love what I do. I feel privileged to work with the team, and the team that I have is world class, and we work on devices that we absolutely love. And so I hope that the audience members have had opportunities. Quite a few of you asked great questions about the ThinkPads or using ThinkPads. So I really really appreciate that as well. But it's an exciting place to work for sure.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Tom, and thank you for joining us, audience members. I really appreciate all of your insightful questions throughout the show. So please feel free, join us next Thursday at 3 p.m. for another edition of the Tom's Hardware Show. We will also have another guest, and I think I can just share this. It's going to be Rockcat. Rockcat will be joining us to talk about their various peripheral offerings. But before you leave, Tom, any last lingering things that you haven't had a chance to share?
The last thing I'll share is this year also marks a very special anniversary for us. It's the 30th year of ThinkPad. So if you can imagine that. So October 5th, uh, stay tuned. There may be some exciting things coming, but we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of the launch of ThinkPad. So really an
I'll be
exciting
sure to
year
put
for
that
us.
on my calendar.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure we cover that, and who knows, maybe we'll have you on again if you're willing to join us. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute treat looking at these laptops with you.
Likewise. Thanks so much. And thanks so much for the questions as well. Really appreciate that.
Of course. And thanks to the audience for helping me with those questions. We will see you next Thursday at 3 p.m. Bye, everyone.